I have a deep passion for the craft of songwriting, but how much energy do I give to my stagecraft? Today we're going to talk to an entertainer who does think about the big show, so stick around. Welcome to Charlie's Open Mic. My name is Charlie Mosbrook. On this week's show, we have Kerry Patrick Clark. He is a songwriter and entertainer out of Maumee, Ohio. We're going to talk about his background and his new record, but before we do that, let's listen to his music.
There were these piglets dreamed about a village, so they built it, the houses numbering 3. Then came this Egypt. I know you know the story, but revisit this here now with me. He blew the homes of straw and twigs. I overheard this from one pig. I did. Time you should have been pouring footers in the frost line under the ground. Well, if stuff's not strong enough, just a little puff will leave what we have found. The walls come tumbling down. The walls come tumbling down. He's big and he's bad. He don't worry about the details. He's got a new plan, thinking fast on his feet. He says it's so grand, knows you're gonna love it. He says, I can, no one's better than me. You see, it's toughness, talent, guts. One pig calls him nuts. Good luck. The time you should have been pouring footers in the frost line under the ground. Stuff's not strong enough, just a little puff will leave what we have found. The walls come tumbling down. The walls come tumbling down. Tumbling down. Tumbling down. Because history repeats. We still got liars, wolves, and sheets. Concrete. All this time I've been pouring footers in the frost line under the ground to make it strong enough so just one little puff won't leave my dreams on the ground. The walls come tumbling down. The walls come tumbling. The walls come tumbling down.
Welcome to the show, Kerry Patrick Clark.
Thanks, an honor to be here, Charlie.
You're from Maumee, Ohio?
I am.
Are you originally from Maumee?
No, I was born in a little town called Mason, Michigan. If you're from Michigan, that's what you always do because this is the state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from about there. And we moved to, kicking and screaming, by the way, we moved out of Michigan into Ohio.
And you've been in Ohio ever since then?
About 5th grade on. That's where I met my musical mentor, my 7th grade social studies teacher, and this whole musical passion discovery journey took off. Eddie was his name. He was my 7th grade social studies teacher, taught me more about music and entertaining than pretty much anything I've ever learned, and really took me under his wing.
How did he introduce it to you?
Well, we had a guitar club, and he was sort of, how every town has their own sort of mini star, if you will, like a singer-songwriter that is spoken of a little more highly than any other singer-songwriter. Mm-hmm. Eddie was that guy in Toledo at that time, and he was also an educator. And I chose to be in the guitar club that met one day a week. And he sort of took me under his wing and saw the passion that I had. And I worked with him for years. And what I learned from working with Eddie is the art of entertainment, the art of having a conversation from the stage. And you break that barrier between the audience and the performer, which hadn't happened up until, you know, the time that Al Jolson, for example, literally walked down into the audience. And about the same time that Rudy Valley took his megaphone into the audience, and they broke that barrier, which opened up the stuff that we do as singer-songwriters. We invite people in, that interaction that hadn't really happened up until the time that Al Jolson and Rudy Valley did what they did.
Did you then continue chasing music through high school then?
I did, with the help of Eddie, who got me essentially my first several jobs. You know, I'm 15 years old singing in clubs. I was too young to, you know, legally work there. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I did, and I worked. It wasn't for a lot of money, but I was in heaven. Mm-hmm. And so on one hand, I had a scientific father and a CPA mother who was looking at their artsy fartsy son saying, you ought to think about going to school and getting a real job. And here's their artsy fartsy son saying, Mom and Dad, I don't think you understand the passion, the voice that this music has given me. This is what I want to do. Oh, you don't understand, son. That's no way to make a living. You can do that on the weekend. Mm-hmm. And this conversation goes back and forth for years until two things happened in a span of about 2 months. One was I made more than my father did that year as a scientist. And the second thing was he got a letter from Owens, Illinois, thanking him for his 35 years of service, but they had just been bought out. You may want to think about this buyout. And so he was at a crossroads that really had never happened up until that point. And so this conversation of, Dad, there's always unknown. Your idea, your picture of getting a job and working for a company for 35 years, getting the gold watch when you retire. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen anymore. So I'm really cool with the unknown of music, but I know what I'm capable of and I know what my dreams are. And so that's what I want to do. And so the argument stopped. Pretty cool.
You live right on the Maumee River, don't you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we love it and just love it. The wildlife is spectacular. There are eagles that I see almost every single day. It's amazing.
And does that inspire a lot of music?
It's inspiring in that, if I can use light as a metaphor, which we often do as songwriters, mm-hmm. My old studio used to be in the basement of our house, which was an incredible studio, 9-foot ceilings, but there was no light. And I mean that literally and figuratively. There was no natural light mm-hmm. coming into that space. The way our condo is situated, my studio, which is in the basement, we have a walkout basement. And so I pretty much every 20 minutes am looking toward the water just to see the sun dance on the water or to see the spire, the cross that is on the church across the river or the little islands that our condo overlooks. So it's really inspiring and it's light giving and life giving.
So you're a member of a group called the New Christie Minstrels. Do you want to tell me about that and when that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So those of us that are in the folk music world will probably remember the New Christie Minstrels. They were a group that were formed in the late 50s, were really popular in the 60s, mm-hmm. became the house band for the Andy Williams Show, which just skyrocketed their popularity. One of the more popular groups of the folk era of the 60s. In 1985, they put together, they went around the country to find, this is me telling the story, find good-looking, talented singer-songwriter dudes and girls, guys and girls. And I was one of them. I was one of 7 people that made up the 25th anniversary edition of the New Christie Minstrels. And it was amazing. I got paid a lot of money to travel around the country and sing folk songs. Mm-hmm. And it was really lovely. I learned the art of touring. I learned how hard it was, how wonderful it is, the ups, the downs, the goods, the bads, the amount of work that it takes to play music and to be on the road. Again, that's good stuff and bad stuff all at the same time. But it was magic. It was a really magical time for a 21-year-old, 22-year-old traveling the country singing folk songs. We did roughly 6 shows a week.
Mm-hmm.
And the seventh day, we were traveling 600 to 800 miles to the next section of country that we would start traveling around. Instead of 800 miles, it'd be 200 or 300 miles in between shows.
That's probably a really cool experience as far as learning goes, because you're representing an established act that a lot of people already know. So they have their expectations coming to the show. So you really had to be able to take direction, and which I'm not very good at. I mean, folk singer. Why? Because I just keep doing it my way. I can't listen to the directions, and folk singers, it's very loose. You can do whatever you want. But with an act like that, you really have to replicate what they're trying to do, don't you?
Yes and no. So the beauty of anything that I've ever been involved with, the new Christie Minstrels is one of those stories, is that we take a look at the eclectic group that has come together, and we find out the strengths and the weaknesses, and you build from that. So what was a constant was the songs,
Okay.
right? We had a certain repertoire that we had to do that changed given the area of the country that we were in. If we were singing close to the Mississippi River, we're going to add Mighty Mississippi because that was one of the Christie's big songs. Or instead of putting it in a medley, we would add the entire song, right? So that is the stuff that was more structured and that changed, and I had to fall in line with. The stuff that was creative that really sparked me was we practiced every single day. We would go through our show and we would start by listening to the night show before, the evening before show, critiquing and finding the parts that were breaking down. And then we would rework the song and figure out how to do it better. And I love that stuff because it wasn't so structured that I was singing the same thing the exact same way, the same night, right? So creatively, it was really freeing. And I totally get the set list, right? There's a reason that we have set lists, and there's a reason that they're in the order they're in to elicit some response from an audience, or to use a roller coaster metaphor, as we're taking a journey with an audience. But for me, it was more freeing than anything. And for some reason, the management company gave me a lot of credit for who I was or what I did. And I became the spokesperson for the group. And so anything that had to be said on camera, I was kind of the go-to guy, at least initially. And so that was pretty cool for a 21-year-old kid from Toledo, stinking Ohio.
So these days, you are playing as a solo act. I mean, you put out a record recently. Back in September, I think the record came out.
That's correct, yes.
And what was that called?
It's called What a Show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the type of guy that writes songs, and I think our human journey and our human experience is fascinating and worthy of a lot of songs. So if our lives are musicals, I'm the guy that writes the music to that, right? That's sort of how I picture myself. Up until this last election. And I just dance up against this political stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a real struggle with the way that our president treats people. And so I kept reading headlines about it being all the clown car that is stuffing this administration. The clowns that are in this administration. It's a clown car. What a show. This is crazy, right? And so I just sort of ran with that. And at the same time this is happening, I'm a mid-50s-year-old singer-songwriter looking at a pandemic going, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can embrace this technology and stream, and I've done that, but I'm also really plugged into this interaction with a human being. Mm-hmm. Virtual or not, streaming does not allow that to happen in real time. And that's the important, right? Because streaming, I get interaction, but it's delayed by 10 seconds or 30 seconds, depending. Okay. So I'm sort of looking at all this, and I'm reminded of the first song that I ever wrote as a sixth grader. And it was a concept of my idea. at the time was to run away with the circus. A sixth grader can only see the spotlight and the fancy stuff that's happening, the majesty and all the stars, not the stuff behind the curtain, sweeping out the stalls and picking up the elephant crap.
Mm-hmm.
Flash forward a handful of decades, and I'm looking at the underbelly through headlines that I'm reading of this administration and the things that are going on. And I'm going, it's just like the circus. What would it look like if I went back and I revisited that with the lens of an experience of knowing the majesty and the wonder of the acts that are in a spotlight, but also appreciating the work that's required and the evil sometimes, the crap that happens that you have to clean up. What does that look like? And so it became this process for me to really go inside and through headlines, through emotions, through my process of songwriting. Right? You understand, Charlie? We are a sieve. We take in all this information, we distill it down, hopefully to a song that not only says something but is accessible to the listener. Mm-hmm. And so there's 10, 12 songs on this new CD that in some way have to deal with the majesty and wonder or the underbelly of the circus. It's what a show, man.
The end is almost here, and it's the last month of the year. We'll end a time to reflect upon fond memories and tears. For all the friends we've gained, and still a sense of loss remains. A trumpet blows in the distance, a simple refrain. And though the night is almost gone, we can hold back the dawn and pause in peace and hope that we shall still be here. And as the darkness grew, beyond the solstice light broke through. With every season sad ending is a chance to renew. Beginnings lead with ends. Well, Ann and I, we're all with friends. So let us pause in this moment as we try to suspend. And though the night is almost gone, we can hold back the dawn and pause in peace and hope that we shall still be here. And once the morning arrives, we can open up our eyes and we can open up our hearts with a song for these January skies. And once the morning arrives, we can open up our eyes and we can open up our hearts with a song for these January skies. Thank you for watching Charlie's Open Mic this week, and thank you to Kerry Patrick Clark for sharing his music and story with us. As always, please hit that subscription link down below. Please ring the bell for notifications of upcoming episodes. Always comment and click that like button down there. And you can visit us at charliesopenmic.com, where you can find a Patreon link to help support the show. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.